Let's jump right into this deep dive. We've got a fascinating stack of source material today, a compilation of speeches from Sadhguru.
Yes, and they really dig into what it means to be human, our inner experience, and even how that connects to things like management.
It seems like a really rich set of ideas.
Definitely. It kind of challenges conventional thinking about life, success, how we navigate the world,
All right. Pushes us to look inward, a direction we often, well, ignore.
Exactly.
So our mission today is to unpack the core insights from this material you provided. We want to distill the most important nuggets and understand what they suggest about living a truly full, joyful, and impactful life.
Especially with all the complexities of modern life, yeah.
And at the heart of it all seems to be this one fundamental idea.
That the source of your experience of life is fundamentally within you. That's the core message, really.
And it kicks off with a pretty striking way of looking at life itself. Time plus energy.
Yeah, the idea is that time is the constant. It just rolls away at the same pace for everyone, no matter what you do.
Doesn't matter if you're busy or bored, rich or poor.
Nope, same amount of time ticking by. But energy, that's the variable. And this is key. The source suggests if you can bring your energy to a certain intensity.
And intensity.
Yeah, a certain level of intensity and focus, you could potentially achieve in, say, 1 year what might take someone else 10 years.
Wow. So it's not just about duration, it's the quality of your energy.
Exactly. It's this intensity that dictates your impact. The material frames it as allowing your life's impact to feel like you lived for 1,000 years, even if you only actually live 100.
So it all comes down to managing your life energies then.
Consciously.
Precisely. And achieving that kind of impactful intensity, well, it requires becoming conscious. Because as the source points out, so much of our energy just gets wasted.
Wasted how? It mentions compulsive cycles. What does that mean exactly? Well, think about a typical day. The source estimates maybe 50% of our time goes into just basic maintenance, right? Sleeping, eating, showering, all that stuff.
Okay, makes sense.
That leaves the other 50%. But if you really look closely, a huge chunk of that time often gets caught up in these repetitive sort of unconscious loops.
Like what? Checking your phone constantly.
That's one example, yeah. Or cycling through the same worries again and again in your head, reacting automatically, getting angry about the same things. It's just energy going round and round, not really achieving anything. Compulsive.
Ah, okay. Those familiar loops.
Yeah.
And the material makes a really important distinction related to this, doesn't it? Between pain and suffering.
Oh, absolutely. This is where it gets really interesting, I think. Pain, it explains, is physiological. It's basically a survival mechanism.
Right. The source uses some pretty stark examples. Pain in your hand stops you burning it off. It's good for you physically.
Vital, even. It mentions, extreme cases where lack of pain leads to self-injury, just to highlight its physical necessity. Pain preserves the body.
Okay, so pain is physical, but suffering.
Suffering, the source argues, is almost entirely created in the mind. It's not the physical sensation itself. It's the story we weave around it.
The story.
Yeah, the mental additions. Taking that physical pain and multiplying it, or agonizing over something that happened years ago, or dreading something that might happen in the future.
So we're suffering our own memory and imagination.
Pretty much, which are fantastic tools meant for survival and creativity, but they can turn against us, become sources of suffering.
And this ties back to those compulsive cycles.
Exactly. The material suggests most of us are essentially ruled by the compulsions of our body, our thoughts, our emotions.
It actually says for like 90% of people, these instruments, body, mind, emotion, energy, they're supposed to serve you, but instead, they're ruling you.
Which leads us right back to that central, powerful idea.
That all human experience, love, hate, anger, misery, joy.
Agony, ecstasy, everything.
Yeah.
It happens from within, not from outside.
And then it poses that really simple, almost confrontational question.
Yeah. What happens from within you? Should it happen your way or somebody else's way?
And when you put it like that, the answer seems obvious.
It has to be your way, doesn't it? Because the external world, forget it. It's full of other people, countless variables. It's never going to happen 100% your way.
Ever.
But what happens within you? Your thoughts, your feelings, your experience. That can. And if it doesn't, well, that's when the source uses that really strong phrase.
The worst form of slavery.
Exactly. It draws this powerful comparison. We all recognize physical slavery, someone else deciding where you sit, what you do. That's terrible.
Of course.
But the source argues that someone or something external deciding whether you are happy or unhappy, joyful or miserable inside. That's a deeper, maybe even worse kind of slavery.
That really makes you think.
Hmm.
And this connects to the idea that our inner states have a chemical basis, right? Like peace, happiness, anxiety. They're different chemistries.
Right. The analogy used is the chemical soup. We're all made with the same basic ingredients, biologically speaking, but how we mix that soup internally, that varies hugely.
So we can create different internal states.
Yeah. And inner engineering, in this context, isn't about building bridges or machines. It's about consciously engineering your own internal chemistry. Choosing to create, say, a chemistry of blissfulness rather than anxiety or misery.
Managing your own soup ingredients, essentially.
You got it.
Okay, so let's shift gears slightly and look at the modern condition through this lens. The material points out something pretty obvious but profound when you think about it. Our survival is better organized than ever before.
Oh, absolutely. Water from the tap, food readily available for many, conveniences, comfort. It's unparalleled in history.
The source highlights this contrast, like an average person today might drive a car with the power of hundreds of horses, something royalty couldn't even dream of not so long ago.
We have incredible external comfort and power.
But here's the kicker.
Hmm.
Are we the most joyful generation? The most peaceful?
Mm-hmm.
The most loving?
And the source suggests probably not, or at least it's highly questionable. We kind of expected that organizing survival and getting comfortable externally would automatically lead to inner well-being.
And it just hasn't happened that way.
No. The comfort and conveniences came at a huge cost too, to the planet, to other life forms, and yet we're often not even happy.
Which leads to this critique that our goals, our ideas of success, are often, well, the source calls them stupid.
Yeah, that they drive people nuts. The analogy used is heartbreaking, treating children like racehorses, pushing them relentlessly towards a finish line, which is ultimately death.
And it cites that awful statistic about child suicides in places like India as a symptom of this. This is societal failure.
It's a devastating critique of prioritizing external achievement over inner well-being, especially for the young.
And this constant search for comfort zones or looking outside for stimulation to feel good inside, the material says it actually limits our lives.
Right, because it's driven by the fear of suffering. If you're always seeking comfort, you avoid challenges, you avoid growth. And even comfort itself, or even love, can get tedious if life isn't expanding.
Life wants to expand limitlessly, it suggests.
Exactly. There's this analogy of a golden palace. Even if you were put in the most luxurious, perfect external setting, if there's no scope for inner growth and expansion, it eventually becomes a gilded cage you'd want out.
So the core point remains, trying to create inner pleasantness, happiness, peace, whatever, by just fixing the outside.
Yeah.
Getting the job, the money, the relationship.
It's trying to cause something within by manipulating the outside. And sure, external things can stimulate us, give us temporary highs or lows.
But the real lasting shift has to happen internally.
That's the argument.
Okay, so
Yeah.
if the problems, the suffering are generated within, how do we deal with them? The material talks about dissolving problems, not solving them. What's the difference?
Yeah, this is a crucial distinction for internal issues. The idea of solving an inner problem, like a troubling thought or emotion, is presented as, well, kind of madness.
Sadness. Why?
Because it's like creating what the source calls an illus solution for an illusion. The analogy given is watching a movie, you see drama on the screen, maybe violence or romance. Getting upset and trying to intervene on the screen itself would be crazy.
Right, it's just light and shadow.
Exactly. Thoughts and emotions, from this perspective, are similar phenomena. They arise, they pass. Trying to find a permanent solution for every single one is like creating a ghost and then needing a ghostbuster to fight it.
A ghost you created yourself.
Precisely. The material suggests if you create these inner ghosts, thoughts, emotions, you can either play with them if you like them or just turn them off, withdraw your attention if you don't. They don't need a big fight or a complicated solution. Let them come and go.
So less fighting, more observing, maybe.
Or just managing your attention and energy. And central to all this inner management is something very simple yet difficult: being absolutely truthful with yourself.
The umbrella story.
Yeah, the person getting wet in the rain who claims their umbrella has holes rather than just admitting they didn't open it or forgot it. We often deceive ourselves in small and big ways.
And the source argues that being 100% straight with yourself, brutally honest internally, is the key to making this piece of life, yourself, function properly.
It fixes the internal mechanism, so to speak.
Now, it brings up yoga here. Not just as exercise, right?
Got it all. Yoga, in this broader context, is presented as a technology or a process for consciously obliterating the boundaries of your individuality, expanding your sense of self.
How does that help?
Well, if you start to experience everything or everyone as part of yourself, then external rules or morality become less necessary. The example given is simple. Would you deliberately cut off your own finger?
Of course not.
Because it's you. So if your sense of you expands, harming others starts to feel like harming yourself. Things like do not kill become intrinsic, not just external commandments you follow out of fear or duty.
That's a profound shift in perspective. Another key element discussed is perception using our five senses.
Yes, this is presented as absolutely fundamental. The data coming through your senses is the most crucial information you have for just functioning in the world, like literally walking upright on a spinning planet without falling over.
It mentions how losing memory can even affect physical stability.
Because that connection to the sensory data, the learned experience, is disrupted. A child, the source points out, is constantly just absorbing data through their senses with intense attention. They instinctively know they need this information to navigate reality.
So attention through the senses gives us usable information.
Critically usable, and this is distinguished sharply from just intellectual knowledge.
A football PhD analogy comes in here, right?
Yeah, brilliant analogy. You can read 1,000 books on football, get a PhD in the theory of football, know every rule, every player's history.
But can you actually play?
Exactly. Reading isn't playing. Intellectual knowing isn't the same as perceptual knowing and the ability to act effectively in the moment. Perception and attention are key for actual capability.
But there's a catch with intelligence.
Right. Intelligence, if it doesn't have a stable enough inner platform to operate from, can actually turn against you.
How so?
That's where stress, anxiety, depression come in. According to this view, these are often signs of intelligence lacking a stable foundation. Practices like yoga, in its broader sense, are meant to provide that stability so your intelligence works for you, not against you.
Makes sense. And it also clarifies the difference between memory and intelligence.
A huge point.
Yeah.
Our education systems often confuse the two, rewarding memory data accumulation as if it is intelligence, but they're different faculties.
Memory is just the data bank.
Right. And looking at the world through the filter of past memory constantly creates prejudice, preconceived notions. The inner work involves learning to see clearly, beyond the accumulated data.
So separating memory from intelligence is part of the process.
A big part.
Yeah.
And instead of seeking external commandments for life, rigid rules telling you exactly what to do.
Like thou shalt not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of seeking those fixed rules, the focus should be on cultivating consciousness. Because commandments fix life, try to nail it down. Consciousness liberates it, gives you the flexibility and awareness to handle any situation appropriately.
That leads to another observation in the material, our increasing reliance on chemicals.
Prescription meds, not just for physical health, but for trying to manage our inner states, for peace, for joy, sometimes even for ecstasy.
And this is seen as a problem.
It's presented as a sign that we haven't learned to manage our own internal systems, our own chemistry, naturally. We're outsourcing our well-being to external substances.
And that subjugates our own faculties.
That's the argument. The analogy used is about a grasshopper. If you take away its leg so it can't hop, you haven't enhanced its life, even if it starts jumping where you don't want it to. Similarly, relying on chemicals might numb pain or induce pleasure, but it diminishes your own innate capacities.
So the desire for enhancement is natural. People seek it out, whether at a bar or a church, perhaps.
Right, that longing for something more is inherent. But without the right methods, people take shortcuts, intoxication, for example, which the source says ultimately sets you backward. It doesn't truly enhance life.
Let's talk more about that longing for expansion. You mentioned it earlier. The material says humans have two fundamental drives.
Yeah, the survival instinct, staying safe, basic needs, and this other deeper longing to expand limitlessly.
And these often get confused.
Very often. We try to satisfy the longing for limitless expansion through physical means, acquiring more stuff, more power, more territory. But physical expansion is inherently limited.
There's only so much stuff you can have.
Right. The real longing, the source suggests, is for boundless expansion in consciousness, becoming limitless within.
But something holds most people back from really exploring that.
Yes. The biggest crippling factor, according to this material, is the fear of suffering.
Just the fear of it.
Exactly. Not necessarily suffering itself, but the constant background anxiety about potential pain or misery. It makes people tentative, makes them walk through life taking only half a step, unwilling to risk, unwilling to explore fully.
So freedom from that fear is crucial.
Absolutely crucial. The source states it very clearly. Only when you are free from the fear of suffering, when you have that deep inner assurance, that stability where you know, okay, whatever happens externally, this is how I will be within myself.
Then you can really live.
Then you can explore the full depth and dimension of life without hesitation. Your way of being, your inner state, is no longer dictated by what's happening around you.
And if you achieve that, there's no fear. You can traverse life fully.
That's the promise.
Okay, this ties everything back beautifully to the idea of management. Because the source material says life is management, fundamentally.
Right from the start, managing your body, your mind, your emotions, your energy, your time,
Yeah.
then managing situations, family, work. It's all management.
But where do we usually focus our management efforts?
Overwhelmingly on the external, wouldn't you say? Especially economic management, managing resources, businesses, careers.
Yeah, that seems right. And the material makes a really poignant, almost tragic observation about this.
That people suffering their failure, well, that's understandable, maybe even expected. But the real tragedy is when people suffer their success.
Suffering the very thing they work so hard for.
Yes. If you achieve external success, the money, the position, the recognition, but your inner experience, your happiness, your peace is actually going down.
Then you're a bad manager.
A bad manager of yourself. That's the blunt assessment in the source. Your primary responsibility managing your own inner world is failing, despite external appearances.
And managing the outside well is just accidental if the inside isn't managed.
Pretty much. If you don't know how to manage your own mind, emotions, energy, any external success is unstable. You're essentially existing as an accident, a potential calamity waiting to happen, which is why the source suggests there's so much underlying anxiety even among successful people.
So stress doesn't just come from the job then?
No,
Yeah.
it comes from your inability to manage your internal system. The stress isn't inherent in the activity, it's in your response. It can happen whether you're doing something demanding or doing absolutely nothing. It's internal friction.
Wow. Management then, in this deeper sense, is about consciously deciding your destiny, not living by accident.
Exactly, and trying to manage other people's minds, whether you have a team of 10 or a company of 10,000.
If you can't manage your own mind,
It's a recipe for disaster. How can you hope to orchestrate harmony or productivity in others if there's chaos within you?
so what does true management look like, according to this perspective?
True management isn't just about profit or efficiency, though those might be outcomes. It's about creating an environment where, in the very process of working together, human beings are elevated.
Elevated.
Yeah, brought to their full potential, where their sense of love, peace, compassion actually grows through the work they do together.
Yeah.
If the process breaks people, diminishes them, makes them stressed and unhappy,
Even if the company makes money.
it's considered bad management because it's destroying the human potential involved.
It's not just about throwing your weight around.
Definitely not. The source says any fool can do that. There's that funny little joke used about a lion trying to command elephant tuskers just by roaring louder. It doesn't work. They operate differently.
Right.
Real management, true leadership, elevates people simply by the quality of the manager's presence, their way of being. It inspires. It doesn't just command.
So inner management isn't just a nice to have for personal well-being. It's actually foundational for any kind of effective external action or leadership or fulfillment.
Absolutely. And it requires understanding what you really are. The source describes the body as just a heap of food you've accumulated.
And the mind as a heap of impressions gathered from outside.
Right. But you, the consciousness experiencing it all, are something more fundamental than these temporary gatherings. Connecting with that core is key.
And when you connect with that, maybe putting your heart into what you do.
It makes any activity beautiful, the source says. Doesn't matter what the task is. If you are fully present and engaged, it becomes a fulfilling process.
What about dealing with the negative stuff in the world? The filth, as the source calls it, corruption, difficulty, unpleasantness.
The advice isn't to become allergic and run away, trying to create a sterile bubble, nor is it to just dive in and become part of the filth yourself. See it for what it is.
Yeah.
Recognize that filth can actually be great manure. It can be fuel for growth if you know how to use it. You choose whether to empower it negatively by reacting to it compulsively or to use it constructively.
Don't let the situations create you. You create the situations from within.
That's the essence. Success ultimately comes from capability. And capability isn't just about skills or knowledge.
It's being capable as a human being.
Yes. Capable of navigating any life situation without being internally disturbed or destroyed by it. Like that image of the lotus flower, it grows in the mud but remains untouched, pristine. That's the kind of capability it's talking about.
Being in the world, but not letting the world mess you up inside.
You got it. And the best kind of management flows from this inner state. It becomes about inspiring people, which comes naturally from your own dedication, your own love for the process, giving yourself fully.
When you touch the core of his humanity in the people you work with.
They naturally want to do their best for you, for the project. It's not about coercion or manipulation. And paradoxically, this approach prevents the manager from getting ulcers. Management only becomes suffering when the people around you are constantly pulling you down because they aren't inspired or engaged.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Bringing all these threads together, this deep dive into the source material, seems to present a really powerful, consistent argument.
It does. The core message is that our experience of life, its quality, its depth, its impact, is fundamentally an inside job. It originates within us.
So true well-being, peace, joy, resilience, even effective management and leadership, they don't primarily come from fixing or controlling the external world.
No, they stem from consciously managing our internal landscape, our energy, our thoughts, our emotions, our own body chemistry, getting our own house in order first.
And understanding this, really grasping it, offers you, the listener, a profound realization, doesn't it?
I think so. It suggests you have the power right here, right now to determine your inner state, regardless of external circumstances. It's a shift from feeling like a victim of your thoughts and feelings.
To becoming the conscious engineer of your own inner experience.
Exactly. It's a call to take radical responsibility for the one domain that only happens within you, your own moment-to-moment experience of being alive.
Okay, so given that perspective from the source, that everything you have ever experienced, good or bad, happy or sad, has happened within you, here's a final thought for you to maybe sit with.
What would it truly mean? What would it look like in your day-to-day life to fully take responsibility for your own internal experience?
And what might shift if you stopped pouring all your energy into trying to manage the outside world just to feel okay on the inside?
And instead focused on cultivating that inner stability, that inner richness, becoming, as the source might say, a great soup yourself, regardless of the external ingredients life throws your way.